Seismic Cinema would like to thank the Fast Camels for our title and end credit track, Tales of the Expected. The Fast Camels are an explosive blend of 60s influenced psychedelia, freakbeat and classic power pop. You can check them out on Spotify, YouTube and on their website through bandcamp.com. Thanks guys.
I went to the woods because I want to live deliberately. I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. And welcome to Seismic Cinema. We're not quite the Dead Poets Society, but we're here to review it. I'm Colin. I've probably not seen the film. Paul's probably watched the series in the wrong order.
And I'm James, and I've probably written an essay on it.
Okay, welcome James, and welcome to everyone listening. So we are Seismic Cinema, and you can follow us on X, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. And on Facebook, we have a Facebook page, but we also now have a community group where you can come and talk all things movies and TV shows. So please consider giving us a follow or a like. You can listen to our podcast and past episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, and Amazon Music. And we are part of the Podpack Collective, casters who like to support one another. And it features the people listed: Chat Tsunami, Nerdstalgic Podcast, Casting Views, Two Girls, One Reusable Cup, Weird Club, and Ben Push Pull Health. And just in terms of recent episodes we had Jaws a few weeks ago, which was a really successful one for us, getting over 400 views on YouTube. So thanks to everyone who checked that out. We had The Hunger Games, which we released recently, featuring Marie from Two Girls, One Reusable Cup. It was a James pick, which was Disturbia. So myself and James at the moment are taking kind of in turns to pick a movie to review. So with that in mind, James, what have you been checking out since we last recorded together?
So I'm still kind of on Dexter at the minute. So I'm on the last season of Dexter. Just started the first episode. So on that, I kind of paused it just now. I'll go back to it. I did say that I was going to wait until the end, until the show was finished for this one, but I just I couldn't help it. So I've started season 5 of Expedition Bigfoot. So so I watched the first 2 episodes of that last night, and obviously for the film review today, this morning, Dead Poet Society.
You need to stop breaking the fourth wall.
What about you, mate? What have you been watching?
It's been a very busy week with work and family. So obviously I watched Dead Poet Society over the weekend, but the only other real thing I watched was the first episode of season 4 of Only Murders in the Building on Disney Plus. It's a kind of comedic murder mystery show. I've watched the previous seasons. It's a big cast, like Steve Martin and Selena Gomez. Like, it's pretty well known. So I've been watching that. A few movies in that this week, but some weeks, as you know, you just have quite a lot on personally, you know.
Aye, I have seen. Well, we've seen the first maybe 2 seasons of Only Murders in the Building. So I gave up on it. I don't know why. I don't know. I just got maybe a wee bit bored with it, man. But
I thought the first season was really good. I think it's maybe one of those shows that the longer they keep it going, the quality decreases. But I thought the first season was really good.
aye, same. I quite enjoyed it. But then I just thought, but is the new season on Disney now? Is it?
They released them weekly because it's like obviously a murder mystery show. I think they like people to actually like theorize and think about things in between. So it comes out every Tuesday. So it's one I'm kind of loyal to in a sense. You know, you get shows that they're maybe not as good as they were at the start, but you kind of keep going with them just so you can see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I've really been watching. So just in terms of getting into the review, so James, what's your background and history with this movie? Like, when did you first check it out? How many times have you seen it?
I can't really put a time frame when I first seen it, to be honest with you, Colin. I know it was a long time ago. Certainly, probably if I was to put a time when I started uni, probably. So I was at uni when I watched it first. So I was probably late to the party in that regard. But I think the film itself, I don't know. Even if I was at school, I don't know if it's the type of film that I would have watched then. You know what I mean? I was in school, I'd like be watching things like American Pie and just kind of daft films like that. Do you know what I mean? But this is also a more kind of serious film.
Let's not insult American Pie now.
No, I'm not insulting it.
I get what you mean. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So this is obviously a more kind of serious nature to it. In terms of how many times I've seen the film, it's not that many times. I say maybe at most the fifth time I've seen it. Really. So, but it's one that sticks. It's one that sticks in your mind. You know what I mean? Because of how good it is, and it's a film that I will recommend to people. If you haven't seen it, then go and watch this film along with Good Will Hunting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think those two pair together quite nicely. Like, I was even later to the party naturally because it's me. But a couple of years ago, I can't remember where was it. I don't think it was you. It was a guy called Neil Boyle. He's a guy who lives local, but he's a movie director. He does like short films and stuff. We've actually had him on the podcast before to talk about one of these films, and I'm sure he recommended Good Will Hunting. And then I think I actually watched this first, but I watched them in quite close succession to each other because of the Robin Williams effect.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've maybe watched it 3, maybe 4 times. So as you said, it was a film that had a big impact on me. And it's funny how we went down a kind of teacher theme, different ends of the spectrum the last 2 weeks. The teacher in Disturbia, and then
that's true.
Mr. Keating. That wasn't even deliberate. So, so a couple of years ago, and then watched it a few times since. And as you said, it's one I would definitely recommend to people to watch, because a big part for me of starting this podcast with Paul back in the day was to watch films that I hadn't seen that I probably should have seen. So I'm still on that journey, but this is definitely one I enjoyed.
It's like I say, it's one that sticks in your mind, and I think in a way it's a big impact on me as well. But it's probably even more so now because I don't think I've seen this film since I became a teacher. You know what I mean? This is maybe the first time I've watched it again.
Yeah,
since I became a teacher. So it's a wee bit. Does it differently, and I'm hoping we do touch on that at some point.
Yeah, I think we can save that. But just wanted to give a wee bit of background using my fancy new whiteboard. So Dead Poet Society came out in 1989, so 2 years before I was born. James, you'd have just been a young thing at that point. It is 2 hours and 9 minutes long. It's a drama, but also a coming of age film. And the kind of premise is the charismatic professor breathes new life into a strict prep school. So that's the succinct summary that Disney Plus gave anyway. The director, which it's a shame I haven't actually heard of him because this film's so good. Peter Weir is the director, and it was written by Tom Schulman. It won Best Screenplay in the Oscars, and it was also nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor for Robin Williams, and Best Director. It's got an 8.1 out of 10 rating on IMDb, which I personally think's really low. From maybe it's something we can touch back on, but to me that seems not accurate. Let's just touch on it now. What do you think, James?
You can never tell with these IMDb scores and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And like the things on Rotten Tomatoes and other kind of film review places. I think it is slow. I mean, I don't want to give my score away now, obviously, but I think for what I see, the film is, you can't really tell people how they will like this film. I'll recommend it, but they don't have to like it. And I've had films recommended to me before, and they've said they're sworn by it, and I'm going right, but it just wasn't for me. So, it's low in my opinion. 8.1.
Yeah.
I'd be giving it more than that, and that's a kind of spoiler. But I did expect a little bit more.
And it's got a 79. I'm assuming that's out of 100 on Metascore, like the critics scores. The budget was $16.4 million, which is not massive. Maybe by those 1989 standards it was. But the worldwide kind of revenue for the film was $9 million. So it did pretty well. And I'm sure it's one that people continue to check out, particularly on Disney Plus. The cast, of course, we've touched on him already, is Robin Williams as John Keating. We've got a very young Ethan Hawke as Todd Anderson. We've got Robert Sean Leonard as Neil Perry. Josh Charles as Knox Overstreet, and the main actors in a show called The Good Wife that I really liked, which is a lawyer show. He's a really big part in that. We've got Gail Hansen as Charlie Dalton, Dylan Cussman as Richard Cameron, and Disney Plus didn't put him on the top credits, and I kind of wish I hadn't because his name's complicated. It's Alalan Ruggiero, who played Stephen Meeks, and I just didn't think we could leave Meeks out because I think he's quite a big character. So
I like Meeks as well.
I felt it was important to put him in. So that's the main cast for the movie. So James, what was your thoughts on, just before we get into the actual movie, what were your thoughts on the cast for this film?
To be fair, I mean, watching this back, Ethan Hawke, obviously, I seen him like in this film, very, very young, and obviously, like, I've seen him a lot more things, since then, and it's just, I couldn't believe it was the same person, to be honest with you.
I know if you didn't know, you could have easily not realised throughout the whole film.
Definitely. The cast, I don't particularly remember seeing the other characters cast in other films, other than obviously Robin Williams, and you mentioned Josh Charles.
Josh Charles is in The Good Wife.
See, I've never seen The Good Wife. That's the one with Ted Danson, isn't it? Seeing that?
Who's Ted?
No.
I can't remember who Ted Danson is, but it might be.
He's the guy that was in Cheers. No,
I would need to look him up.
No. I don't know. So I mean, if I was to go and look at their IMDb's now, there would be loads of stuff that I've seen.
I meant more just how did you find the cast in this film, maybe, rather than kind of further afield, you know?
All right, okay. So I thought the cast in this film, I think they all worked well together. I think that it was a close knit relationship with them all, and I quite enjoyed their relationships. What yourself?
Yeah, obviously Robin Williams, the standout, as he was in Good Will Hunting as well, and it's something we'll kind of talk about at times. Is those two films, but to me, he's the best actor I've ever seen in cinema, and it's such a travesty that he was lost so relatively young, and there won't be more films. But I am grateful we've got films like this and Good Will Hunting to remember him by.
He was a standout in it. Do you know what I mean? And it is a shame that he's no longer with us anymore. But we've obviously got his films to remember him by, and I don't think he made a bad film. Like, seriously, I just don't think he made a bad film. I even go as far back as like, I loved Jumanji growing up, and
Yeah,
he was in that, and even watched a film kind of recently called 1 Hour Photo. He was in that as well. Again, another kind of serious role, and I just didn't expect, because you always associate Robin Williams with obviously Mrs. Doubtfire and Jumanji, like kind of comedy,
Do you remember
comedic
Flubber?
roles. Flubber as well. I went to the cinema with my dad to see that. But even the serious ones like Dead Poet Society, you've got Good Will Hunting, and even that 1 Hour Photo. I mean, that's on Disney as well, mate. So check that out. And he's really good in that as well.
Yeah. Is there who would you class? Is there any actor you think you've seen that's superior? I know it's not nice to compare, but to me, I would probably class him as my favorite actor of all time.
I don't know.
Have you got anyone that
for
stands out
me,
for you?
I would say Leonardo DiCaprio. He's probably my favorite actor of all time.
He's up there for me, but I just feel like, I don't know. I just feel like, see when Robin
Range
Williams
of
is good, like see those therapy scenes in Good Will Hunting, for example, and a lot of the scenes, the lessons, those particular scenes are just, no one else could do that to that extent, you know.
I suppose his range of acting. I mean, I wouldn't say Leonardo DiCaprio was like kind of like comedic way that he is, and he's obviously a range of more kind of serious films and stuff. But I just think for me, Leonardo DiCaprio, I mean, he's got his back catalogue, like The Beach, Blood Diamond, and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, Inception.
Don't forget your debut was
Shutter Island, of course. I know, but so like Wolf of Wall Street, all things like that. So it's, I don't know. For me, it's all about opinions, mate. Do you know what I mean? And it's fine to have one. I understand why you think he is your, greatest of all time. But for me, it's DiCaprio, and there's no way saying that he's better. It's just my opinion.
Just your preference, yeah. Now, DiCaprio got up there for me, and on Good Will Hunting, Matt Damon, I thought was fantastic in that film as well.
Oh, definitely,
he's probably up there as well. Anyway, so that was just a wee bit about the cast. So I'm going to break this down into some of the key scenes and get your thoughts on it, and just see where we go from there. So I just wanted to start by talking about Keaton's first class, from how he makes himself known to the class, and then kind of how that lesson goes. I'd love to just hear your thoughts on that.
So that's the Carpe Diem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Aye. So I think they're a wee bit, they're unsure. Obviously, an English teacher is in the school, do you know what I mean? And he's kind of telling them that there's kind of whispers about the rumours that he was a former pupil there and things, and he tells them straight, doesn't he? He's so transparent with them, and I think him being like that for the very start shows you that they can hang on to everybody says, really, because he's not there to pander them, I won't say like a bit of bullshit them. Do you know what I mean? I think for that moment to tell them, oh, by the way, I'm a former people here, blah blah blah, and then the Colonel sees the day, what it means, and he's instantly building relationships with them. So he's like, does anyone know what Carpe Diem means? And he's asking them questions, but at the same time he's asking their names. Obviously, doesn't know their names.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, it's a very unusual name. It's a bit unfortunate. He's kind of established a relationship there, like a wee bit of banter. They probably would have heard that elsewhere, because everywhere in that school, we don't really see any other classes.
Yeah.
And all structured. It's probably all by book.
Could you see two other classes prior to this scene which show you how like formal it is and dull it is as well?
That's what I mean. But do you know what I mean? So they're not used to this kind of unorthodox way of teaching. It's like textbooks. And but anyway, the Carpe Diem scene, and he takes them to the his old yearbook into it, and it's like you hear the whispers to seize the day, which is obviously a big theme of the film. And he's whispering to them, but they've all bought into it already.
Well, maybe not all of them.
No, I know.
No. There's a couple of characters, I suppose, that would be a bit more reluctant.
Oh, well, there is. We'll talk about them as well, but
Yeah.
I would say most of them, the characters that you know, feel for. Do you know what I mean? You kind of grow to like them, and you've instantly got that relationship with them as well. And they've kind of, the main ones, they've bought into it. And again, they just hang on to every word he says, really. So again, a good introduction. So hi.
I'd love to. I might try and learn the wee tunies whistling so I can
Again,
for the first time.
Exactly. Well, that even as well. That's just commanding, commanding, attention. Like he's in the room, type of thing. So even that, subtle as it is, you're like, oh, what's that wee tune he's whistling? Like, what is? I don't know. Maybe not really heard that. Like that's just again, unorthodox teaching style, I suppose. Like how he grabs the attention of the class.
You'd said in the intro, and for anyone listening, both myself and James are teachers in different areas of Scotland. And as a movie, as you said, you hadn't seen it since you became a teacher, but it really does get you thinking. And it's something that's easy to forget when you're really busy is that we're not really business teachers or computing teachers. We're really just teachers of human beings. And it is a really deep message that he puts across to them. Like when he shows the pictures of the pupils who are now all dead, it's like they're fertilizing crops. It's like, was it one day you'll be, was it bird food, was it?
Aye.
Is that the phrase he used? Which is
kind of the exact phrase, but aye.
It's quite harrowing, but it really gets you thinking about how short life is and how you want to make the most of every day. And it's why it had a big impact on me, and I always feel kind of extra motivated off the back of watching films like these, which is why I kind of highly recommend them. There's something interesting I noticed, and there's actually a wee bit of substance to it. See how he kind of just walks out the room at the start and gets them to ignore their textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't just a shameless Harry Potter reference. There's a wee bit of fat to this. It really reminded me of Professor Lupin in Prisoner of Azkaban, because he was a lot more practical, away from the textbooks. And in his first lesson, he takes them to a different classroom, and that's where they fight against the Boggart. So for those who know Harry Potter, they'll know what that is. And it got me thinking that Professor Keating and Professor Lupin are very similar. They're both great at building relationships. They're a wee bit unorthodox in their teaching methods, but they get a really good rapport from the pupils, but they also get a wee bit of fight back from the parents. And that Lupin, spoilers for Prisoner of Azkaban, but it's quite old now, turns out to be a werewolf and he gets sacked. And then Professor Keating also leaves this film. But it was quite interesting. Williams actually wanted to play Lupin in Harry Potter, but he didn't get the role because Christopher Columbus wasn't given anyone a role who wasn't British for the Harry Potter films.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's true. For the teachers. And David Thewlis, that took Lupin's role, did a really good job, but it added a wee bit of substance to my theory that Lupin and Keating were quite similar. So I wonder if J.K. Rowling got some inspiration for John Keating.
Aye. No, I do see your point between Lupin and and Keating. Do you know what I mean? But the styles are. I mean, there's always time to do to always say this, right? There's always time to do theory, but let's let's try and do things a bit more practically. And I think at the same time as well, you engage people a lot more doing that. Do you know what I mean? And you capture imaginations and whatever have you. So I I dare say, if Keaton was my teacher at school, I would have really, really liked that.
Would you be on the desk?
Absolutely, absolutely, mate.
Yeah, so really good introduction.
I was on the desk anyway, mate. I was on the desk anyway at school, so.
And we'll get to that scene shortly, but the next one, book scene where he starts reading through this really dull kind of theory behind how they kind of review poems, and he's drawn the graph on the board, and you as a audience member are sitting there quite bored at that stage. Twist where he says, "Rip out the page," and then it becomes rip out the whole introduction, and then this comes back at the end of the film, obviously, when the head teacher who used to be in. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on the kind of textbook scene.
Aye, so I enjoyed that scene, because it's again, it just shows you his. Cause at the same time, he's rebelling against the how rigid the whole school is in terms of the education system. Do you know what I mean? He's come in here for, was it London he was teaching before, and he's came here to make a difference, to maybe in his own head to change things. And the page scene, rip it out. They all turn to each other and going, is this guy being serious here? It's like, they're all laughing. And he goes, no, rip it out. It makes sure it's a clean rip. I don't want any pages left on it. Like, I want rid of all evidence of this page. And they're all looking at each other. And Dalton, being the rebel that he is the first one to do it. And it's like big smile on his face with holding the page up, and they all start doing it. What I liked about that as well, but he stepped away from the classroom, went into his kind of wee quarters in the back, just kind of looking through and seeing them all doing it as if, like, this is act of, rebellion.
Because he does that at the end of the film as well when he's gathering his belongings, which he obviously just left on purpose.
And then when obviously they're making a bit of a racket because it's like, we're getting to rip out a page out of a textbook, this is brilliant, and they're all making a bit of a noise. And another teacher comes into the room and he goes, "What's all this noise about? What are you doing?" And then he sees them all obviously ripping the page out, and they're like crunching it all up in that. And then does he see Keaton comes out? "Oh, I didn't think you were here. Because why would you be teaching this?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm here, all right." And then he leaves. And then I think that scene is the beginning of the kind of the rebellion state. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is not the way I want to teach you.
Mm-hmm.
This is the. I tell you, we're not going to be reading page and all things like that. Which is I like that. And I think if I was at school and a teacher told me to rip a page out, I'd be like, absolutely, yes.
I was going to ask you if you would have page out.
Aye, definitely.
I probably would have waited to see if everyone else has done it first.
Nah, I would probably have done it.
You Charlie?
Maybe no so much in my maybe 5th and 6th year at school, but in my young, like maybe 1st to 4th year maybe, I was kind of like that. So, I dare say I matured later on. So, aye, I don't know if I would have been the first person to do it, to be honest with you, mate, because there were other characters in my class who had jumped at the chance of doing that, but I would have followed suit anyway.
Listen, we need to watch this doesn't turn into a teaching podcast. I've got a similar activity, not similar, but a related activity I do with my class where it's called like snowballing. So you give them a bit of paper with a topic and they need to write down something about the topic, and then they scrunch up and they throw it around to each other. And the kids quite enjoy it. It's a good way to revise like different concepts. But it was I've always kind of hoped somebody would come in when it was happening, so they would think it was chaotic, and then you would just like mic drop, just explain what they were doing.
This is organized chaos.
Yeah, good scene. There's obviously, and this is a bit of a recurring theme. There's a wee bit of reluctance on the likes of I want to say Richard, who's the boy that kind of tattles at the end. But also Meeks is a bit of a interesting character because he's quite easily convinced, but he's also a wee bit reluctant. So he's like kind of looking around to see if everyone else is doing it first before he does it. So I suppose there is that whole kind of conformity aspect of this film, but then I think it's Richard who gets out the ruler on his book before he tears the page out.
Aye.
To make sure he's doing it correctly.
That's
Just because he came up in that scene, I can't remember the teacher's name. I think he was the Latin professor, the one that came into the classroom.
I can't remember.
Is that am I right in saying, because there's a scene where he's teaching them Latin?
No, I will.
Sure.
So
I just thought maybe touch on his relationship with John Keating, because it's quite an interesting dynamic. What were your thoughts on their relationship?
I know, because I think we were having lunch, weren't we, as well, just shortly after that scene.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I'm not really, I'm a bit, unsure of your teaching methods type thing. And I think for him, I can't remember the guy's name now. Don't remember. But I think he kind of wants to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, again, he's been so stuck in his ways, or been forced to do a thing. It just comes natural now to him, and he's like seeing this. Well, this is my interpretation of it anyway. That he kind of, no jealous. That's the wrong word I want to use, but it's more kind of it's no jealous. But you don't say he wants to do it, but he just, I don't think he's got the. Maybe he's a bit older now, whatever. Do you know what I mean? And he's maybe just, this is what's working for me type thing, and then I'll keep it. But he's kind of wishes he could have done that maybe back then. I don't know, because Keaton obviously was at the school when he was a pupil student. Went away. He's went and taught in London. He saw different experiences, saw out different opportunities. He's bringing a wealth of experience back, and he's just want to change the way how things are taught in a different way, in a different aspect. And I think he realizes that it's a much better way for them to kind of find themselves, rather than actually just going through the normality that he did. He's went through that. He knows it doesn't work, or he could have got better. You know what I mean? But so he's just bringing this experience back. But anyway, I did like. Well, I say I like, but it was an interesting dynamic between them both. I don't know what you thought, mate.
I thought it was interesting in that I think they had like different views on how things should be done, but there was like an obvious respect between the two of them. Like he didn't seem to dislike Keaton. He didn't like go and tell on him to the head teacher. He saw it was kind of like he respected what he was doing, but disagreed with it in a sense. That's kind of how I viewed it.
Aye, no, like that's aye. So he respected that definitely. Do you know what I mean? I think aye. So he could have easily, went away and told the he did. Do you know what I mean? And that's by the way, like, I've just seen this, and he would have been fun out a lot earlier. No fun out, but he was maybe been questioned a lot sooner than we did, because he did get questioned later on after a particular scene, but. I think that's a good word, mate. You used to have the respect between them, and and he was respecting what he was trying to achieve. So, I do agree with you there.
I think a big thing about this film, as much as it is classed as a drama, coming of age, it has a lot of when they're having lunch, and he said something about like, are men ever really free if they're not speaking their mind or thinking critically? It was, and then the other teacher thought it was Keating, so it was just something he'd made up that sounded like a quote from someone else. Remember that bit at the lunchtime?
Aye, no, I remember that bit.
I think this is a good point, maybe just to touch on a few of the pupil characters, because I think as we get into the other scenes, that becomes more important. So you've obviously got Todd Anderson, Ethan Hawke, who's the younger brother of a really successful former pupil. He might have elements of dyslexia, was the vibe I got, and that he doesn't want to like read in front of the class, or maybe just a lack of confidence, maybe a bit of anxiety. So that's quite a big plot point for later. You've got Neil Perry, who wants to become an actor. He's got a really controlling father who kind of like calls him out if he speaks against him in public. He's really firm, doesn't listen to him. You've got Knox Overstreet, who falls in love with the girlfriend of a rich jock, and Charlie Dalton, who's just funny and just kind of one of the lads. There's not a lot of substance to him, but he's the kind of ladies' man of the group. Richard, who's he's the roommate of, I can't remember. He's the roommate of somebody else, I think. It's either, is it Knox or Charlie, maybe? Charlie, maybe?
Is he, maybe it's maybe Knox.
He's the one that's kind of the most reluctant. He just wants to get his head down and get on with things. And then there's Stephen Meeks, who we talked about is keen to go along with what people are doing, but he's also a wee bit reluctant. On the point of Richard, see when they came out the first lesson, was it the first lesson? Hey, do you think he's going to test us on these things? And then Charlie goes, "You don't get anything, do you?" And it's just like, and I'm sure you've met pupils like that as well. It's like, it's always about the exam. It's not maybe about the learning process. It's just about that end result. And I thought that was quite an interesting part, that he just didn't understand what Keating was trying to get across to them, and he thought it was, he still thought it was all about the test.
Well, but that's just probably because what he's used to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's got to a point where in the school where everything that they've done served a purpose for a test, for an exam.
Yeah.
So they had to learn this for an exam. They had to learn this, rote learn it, understand it for a written answer in an exam. That's what the process has been for them until this point. He didn't understand the fact this was a life lesson.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he's still in that way of thinking of everything is just an exam purpose, and they've got to remember it for that. But he just didn't understand that was a life lesson, and to use it in any way they can, any opportunity they can. So it was funny, that bit, because I didn't expect him to say that, certainly, but it was a good retort to Richard.
It does hold true though in reality. Like, I'm sure you've met both variants of learner as well. The ones who get the lesson you're trying to pass on, and ones who maybe just want to know. Do you know what I mean?
Aye, there's a variety of different characters in a class. Do you know what I mean? And we all like for so they do get it but then the pupils who are driven, they're really, really driven. Do you know what I mean? And everything has to be for an exam purpose. But then again, I don't know, mate. Like, I don't know. It's maybe for your subject, it might be a little bit different. But
that's not to say though that 10 years down the line they might think back to something a teacher said and it hits them and they understand it once they're matured.
Listen, I do my best. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't always go into a classroom to be remembered in such a way. Do you know what I mean? But it's that way where I remember things my teachers said to me at school. Do you know what I mean? And probably not for 1 second did they think that would be that would be ingrained in
Yeah.
their memories. Do you know what I mean? So, hopefully that's the case, and I've served a purpose that way.
That's true. It's not always. It's maybe not something you intentionally. Naturally, some people might just grasp upon, and it might just kind of resonate with them. So there is that aspect. So the second lesson, we're not going to do all the lessons, but just the second one, which again is really important at the end of the film, was the whole idea of standing on the desk so that you can see a problem differently. And I reckon that and the image that's behind me is probably the most kind of iconic image from Dead Poet Society. So, James, what were your thoughts on the famous kind of desk scene? And well, we can save the end, how it ends to the end, but just in terms of the initial one.
Well, the initial desk scene, I did like it. You know, it's like, the question he asks is like, "Why am I standing on my desk?" And you get Dalton saying, "Well, it's probably a thing I would say at school, so you can feel taller." You know what I mean?
Ding! Wrong again. I like how he pressed the bell with his foot in that case.
Hi, thanks for playing, Mr. Dalton.
I've actually got a bell on my desk.
No, I don't. No, I don't. But maybe a good wee talk to have. No, I did like the scene, mate, because I was like, it's good in a way because when you, it's true. And that, see, to be honest with you, I do this quite a lot in my class, right? So obviously I stand a lot at the front of the class, do you know what I mean? And I'm talking, whatever. But then see when a pupil, I get them to do like I don't know, like interaction. So they go right answer on the board for me. They do things like that, stand up, do presentations, whatever it may be, and I'll go and sit at their seat. So
I
I'm
do
part
that
of
sometimes, yeah.
so I'm part of the lesson where they see me sitting as a class. And you know what it is? It's different because you see what they see
Yeah.
on a day-to-day basis, and that's a different perspective as well. So as they get up in the class, they're doing an answer on the board, or maybe they're doing a presentation. That's a daunting experience. They see it a bit differently. Whereas I sat down on the desk and I seen, what they see, especially when I've got 19 other pupils around me as well, and I'm
Yeah.
sitting amongst them. It's different. So and then when the camera pans at that point where I can't remember from whose point of view it is now, if it's Keaton's or if it's maybe one of the other students, but the camera pans and it's looking outward. So you're taller and you're looking outward, and it is a different perspective. Do you know what I mean? And it's a bit like
You
challenge.
You forget how low down the pupils' chairs are until you sit in them, because I do that myself. I do that myself sometimes as well.
It is low down, and then for both perspectives, like from a pupils and then from the teachers as well. Do you know what I mean? So, nah, that seems really good, mate. Do you know what I mean? And again, they all get to stand and take their turn. That scene did remind me, mate, of, like you've said it. It didn't remind me at the time, but now you've said it, the Prisoner of Azkaban scene, where they all get their turn to face the
Face the dementia, yeah.
aye. So and they all line up and they all jump off the desk and stuff. So I did like it, man.
I think we might have to. We've never actually done it. I think we might need to do Prisoner of Azkaban at some point. That's going to be one of my picks coming up.
Right, okay. So what did you think of the scene, mate?
Yeah, I like the fact that it's a wee bit different. Again, it's memorable. I remember when I was in English in fourth year. I actually can't remember what the purpose of the lesson was, but there was like loads of desks, like sure was just lying on it, pretending to be asleep with his like arms crossed across him. I think it was maybe to do with like a story or something we were reading, but that's what we arrived to. I wonder if he liked this film. He was just lying on the table when we came in, and I can't remember what the lesson was about, but I remember that. So, quite memorable. I think also getting them up, one gets them to think differently, but it's also a wee bit of a confidence builder, because you see a few of them being quite reluctant to go up, but then they're dead happy and excited when they jump off. It's one I'd love to replicate, but I feel this one might break health and safety a wee bit. unless you
Oh,
do.
have you got the health and safety talking in service day? You can't be standing in chairs or tables.
It could be a way around it.
Aye. No, that scene, like, obviously they're on their table. Aye, they're on the table, and then the bell goes, and they're still kind of jumping off it. But Todd is the last one on the table, and he's telling them, you got to, you've got to come up with a bit of poetry, whatever, and you've got to recite it in front of the class. I mean, he knows, as we should all know, the people's strengths, and whatever, do you know what I mean? And we take that into consideration when we teach as well, do you know what I mean? But you know, you said that he's maybe dyslexic and stuff. I'm not sure so much. I just think he's maybe anxiety. I think it's mostly anxiety
Mm.
and just being shy, and probably being compared to his brother as well.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, so his brother was this kind of genius, whatever, wasn't it? He was,
Just one of the top pupils, they said.
aye. So there's that comparison between that, and he's maybe thinking, he's never going to live up to that expectation. So it's maybe that adds to anxiety and whatever. But so it's just that way where he knows he's going to have to come up with this some sort of poetry, and he turns off the lights as well when he moves. So it's like, oh, scary, which is good. I like that.
Yeah, because I had kind of mixed thoughts on Keaton at a couple of points in this film, because I didn't remember every single detail from the last time I watched it, but there was times where I thought he was being a wee bit harsh on Todd. I was like, can you not see that this guy is like really nervous, doesn't want to do this? But I suppose if he kind of like just cajoled him along, he would never, because Keaton always obviously had it in his head. He was eventually going to get him up the front of the class. He was going to get him to close his eyes. He was going to do X and Y, and he eventually got him over. I don't know if Todd would have got over that naturally, but there were times before that scene I just spoke about where I was like, he's not being that sensitive towards his needs, but I suppose it kind of worked out in the end.
I can see what you're saying. I think maybe because he was like, I mean, I know we're kind of jumping scenes here, but the scene where he obviously, puts his hand around his eyes and he can't see things. That I mean, we can't really do that. Do you know what I mean? But I think that would that increase or heighten anxiety more? Do you know what I mean? And all that sort of thing. But he was put in a situation where you got to just kind of trust Keaton here. Do you know what I mean? And he knew what he was doing. He knew there was something in there, and he got over that. And probably thinking, this is obviously transpires, but if it weren't for his teaching, then he wouldn't be. He wouldn't be. He would overcame that. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah.
See as well.
No, you go.
No, I was just gonna say. See, this is obviously an English, English class, English lesson. What was your experiences in English in school? Was it anything a lot like obviously maybe not like this as such, but what was your experience getting learning English at school?
Oh, I suppose where they'll lay on the table, so that was pretty memorable. I had quite a few different teachers, to be honest. My teacher for higher English was fantastic. I learned a lot from him in terms of my own kind of teaching. Like, he's one of those teachers that was always on the move. Like, he was always moving about, walking about. He never stopped, and it's something I like to try and mirror, just in terms of keeping people's attention, like when you're doing questioning and things like that. So he was really good. In terms of like the content, I don't know if you ever did Death of a Salesman.
No, I didn't do that.
That was the one that was
Alien
always
Desire.
I think it is a subject where the teacher matters a lot, because I wasn't maybe naturally interested in learning about poetry and different things like that, but the teacher I had was excellent, and he made it feel good about yourself in terms of like your own like skills and things like that. So kind of before 5th year, there was quite a lot of kind of changes in personnel. I had quite a few different ones, but my one for hire really stood out in terms of a good experience.
That's good. Mine wasn't as good as that. I done Streetcar Named Desire, that play, and I had to read it. The play I had to read it in class, and I played Stanley, so I was given that part. But other than that, it was I don't mind saying I hated English. Like I despised that. I had to get it because I needed to get it. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
as soon as I got higher English, I was out there. I just don't like the nature of how it is because I'm more kind of science, maths based. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where I need solutions to scenarios and questions rather than having to justify an answer. I don't like that. Do you know what I mean?
I'm
I
kind of
just
in the middle because, like, I did computing at school. I've got my higher computing, but I'm a business teacher, so I can kind of see it from both sides a wee bit. In terms of that, it was no, I had a total mind blank there. So yeah, so you didn't enjoy it as much.
no, but so that's like leads to
Yeah.
my point. Whereas I think if I had a kind of teacher like Keaton,
Aye.
that's no disrespect to my old teachers. Do you know what I mean? But I just think that if he was there to kind of imagination and encouragement and all things that you as a teacher want to
Mm-hmm.
aspire to be, then I think I would probably would have been more. I got a B for writing English, right? It wasn't the worst, but I just thought I probably would have enjoyed it more. Do you know what I mean?
It all goes back to the old teach it's how you teach it. So I think that's really present in this film. So the next kind of big event and the title of the film, because if you looked at this film beforehand, you wouldn't really have a clue what it was about, really. So John Keaton used to be part of the Dead Poets Society, which was a group of pupils who liked poetry and they wanted to. Well, they went off into a cave and recited it, and they had their snacks. They sometimes had some girls visiting as well who were swooning. This is what actually this when I had a mind blank. This is what I was going to say. It was I can't imagine me and my pals from school reciting poetry to each other and like running about like quoting it to each other. What about yourself?
Absolutely not.
I don't know if it's just a sign of the not the times. Like it was just in the 80s. Maybe that's what people did. I don't know. It's definitely not what me and my friends did at that age.
No, definitely not. And I think if I was to suggest such things, I would be taken out for a lashing.
I bet
No,
like
so,
I bet like Charlie later in the film. Right, so they find out that Keaton was part of this because it was mentioned in the yearbook, and they just decide they're all kind of inspired, going around saying "Carpe Diem," which I was after I watched this film for the first time, and they want to start it up. So they go to the cave, they get the book, they get the snacks, they eventually get some girls to come along, and they start doing it. Duke of the kind of re-establishment of the Dead Poets Society and how they ran their organization.
So you broke up there. Sorry, it was a question.
Just what were your thoughts on like them kind of bringing back the society from Keaton's youth?
I think it was I think because bringing it back. This is how Keaton, was what he done. This is how he turned out, and again, it's all about that inspiration. Do you know what I mean? If it was okay for him, it was okay for them to do, and it was act of rebellion because it's how authoritarian the school is, and how structured and rigid it all is. This is sneaked off to the cave, and and just kind of being who they want to be type thing. Do you know what I mean? They're kind of to be inspired to learn poetry the way they did from his class, they probably wouldn't have thought that when he started, but that's how much of an impact he had. The scenes were funny, the scenes were good. One of the girls they brought back actually was I'd looked her up because I recognised her that way. She's in. I don't know if you ever
Yeah.
watched Twin Peaks.
No, but I've heard of it. It's kind of is it similar kind of to Black Mirror kind of vibe? Is that the one?
No, it's kind of it's kind of David
Twilight.
Lynch is the person. It's like it's kind of a mystery kind of thing. It's hard to explain. Twin Peaks.
I
Really
did.
is.
I can't find where I can't find where to watch it, but what I'd heard about it, I think it's something I probably would have quite enjoyed.
Aye. So that was out kind of early 90s. Anyway, I'm going off a tangent here. But one of the lassies you seen in the cave was from Twin Peaks. I mean, it felt like it was like it was their party. It was party time for them. Do you know what I mean? And it was they could get away for having to go and sneak off anyway, and just no fully rules, and they can be themselves. I think that's a massive it's coming of age in it. Like everything that they're being more confident and being able to kind of, I know you can do that without reciting poetry, but again, that's how much an impact it's almost like an excuse to go and do it type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what you thought, mate.
It was the natural progression, and it obviously led to them doing things in their own life. Like it led to Knox going after the girl, and it led to Neil, which we'll get onto, going down the kind of acting route.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like the thing I did in the intro, the whole kind of sucking marrow out of life, like just forgetting about all the kind of making life more interesting, like making ordinaries, as they always said, and that'll look different to different people. But it was I'm wondering if say you were in that school with that group of friends, like, or just in that school in general. I know we're not big on per se, but if you're in that era, if you're in that school, would you have been tempted to become a part of this, become a part of the society?
I think it all kind of leads to conformity, and that's also a big thing as well in film. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think in life, we're always want to either be the same as the other person or do the things that they want to do. So probably because of peer pressure and things, do you know what I mean? And be able to be the idea of being accepted. I think that's important. So we don't ever want to be rejected. You always want to be accepted, and I think we all kind of, whether we like it or not, do you know what I mean? I think we've all had some form of conformity in our lives, whether we've realised it or not. Do you know what I mean? And I think for me, if I was thrown at that point in time in with those guys, then I would have done. Do you know what I mean? Even even though I'm saying I don't like, I've got no interest in poetry, right? And that's fine. But again, being thrown into that point in time with those guys, with that teacher, then I probably would have done.
Yeah, an interesting thought, but it is all kind of based on where you were at the time. So before we get on to the kind of Neil plot line, I thought it'd be good to just touch a wee bit on Knox Overstreet. So he's got kind of like well-connected parents who know what was the surname? Is it Chet Danbury's, was it?
Danbury.
Yeah. So he gets taken to like the parents' house, and then Chet's girlfriend's there, what was her name? Or Chris, wasn't it?
Chris. That was Chris, yeah.
And he becomes infatuated with her. To summarize, he writes a school with flowers. There was some kind of, if we look back to our Disturbia review, there was a few similarities with this plotline and the relationship, and that, though in this one, I can actually see why Chris went for it a bit more than why the girl in Disturbia, who I still can't remember her name,
Ashley.
Ashley, went for it. Because scenes on my TV in the background right now. Because I think he probably did things that Chet didn't, like write poems about her, bring her flowers, and although he was really insistent, I kind of understood why she did go for it in the end. He was probably more similar to her in terms of interest, like the theatre, and he was a bit more daring and probably gave her a lot more. So I could see why, I could kind of see why he went for that. What was your thoughts on Knox and his character and the kind of relationship with Chris?
He was the romantic of them all, wasn't he? But again, it all stems from the ideas in the cave and things, and it's again giving the confidence and becoming more and more assertive as time went on. I mean, it's not easy having to recite poetry and get turn up with flowers and things. Again, it's that I spoke with it a wee second ago there about being rejected. Do you know what I mean? He obviously this happened after the kind of party scene, whatever. But I think he still went there knowing he could be rejected, and he was like, "That's the seize the day moment." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's like, "Well, I'm doing this," and she told him to bolt at the lockers. I'm sure it was, and then he followed her into the classroom, and he just started reciting the poetry, and he put a kind of risk reward type thing into it. So he put it all on the line,
Mm-hmm.
and but I can see why, you know, she went for it as well. Do you know what I mean? 100%. It's sorry.
When she's in dating, that's quite often what people say when in reality they're kind of buying into it a wee bit, you know.
Aye. No, so obviously kind of more kind of interesting stuff there. Do you know what I mean? So, aye, it was nice. Like, to be fair, I can see what you were saying about the kind of similarities with the Disturbia aspect of it. 'Cause I was thinking the exact same. Like, we had a conversation. We had a conversation with that last week.
Yeah.
You know, it's
This
like
was this one wasn't anywhere near as bad.
no, it wasn't.
He wasn't taking no for an answer, but he wasn't being like disrespectful to her. Really, he was just throwing it all on the line and just to see if because he really believed in it.
Aye, no, it wasn't anywhere near as bad. 100%. Do you know what I mean? But it was. I did like him. It was nice. Do you know what I mean? It was. He's a harmless character. You know what I mean? And again,
Yeah.
they were nice scenes, even though I was cringing a wee bit when he was doing it. But they were nice scenes.
Well, it's good that there was a kind of light-hearted romance that ended well because the next segment we're going to talk about is the Neil Perry. So we touched on the fact that he had a really controlling dad. He wanted to do things like extracurriculars, was told he wasn't allowed to do them. He wanted to do the play, he had to kind of forge his dad's signature, and then he does the play. Amazing, gets a lot of plaudits. His pals, which I thought was really nice, were really backing him. Like,
Yeah, it's lovely. Yep.
see if you talk about American Pie, do you remember when Oz's friends went to watch him in the play versus the support that yours?
That's right. How sweet
He got a lot.
it is. Well, I remember that scene.
And then, but then his dad basically says he's transferring him to like a military school, and then he's like, "You're going to become a lawyer." He's basically trying to control his whole life, and Neil really sadly because he's another great character.
Was it not medicine he was going to be?
I thought it was a doc. I thought it was a lawyer. They said at the end.
I thought it was a doctor or medicine. I thought he was ready to go to medical school.
I think one of the other friends is maybe. I don't know. I'm sure it was lawyer, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But regardless, he got to a point, and he was such a nice character. He was really kind to. He was really kind to Todd. He was hardworking, polite, talented, but then his dad was just trying to control every aspect of his life, and then he ultimately committed suicide. And then you've got the kind of harrowing scenes afterwards where all his friends are reacting to the news in the snow, which was a really good pick for a setting for that scene, I thought. Because was it Todd was saying like, "Oh, it's so beautiful," and then he just breaks down. I always remember that being earlier in the film, but it's only like half an hour before the end, and it kind of leads to all the kind of end bit. So, what was your take on Neil as a character, the kind of relationship with the family, and his ultimate demise?
Well, obviously he's a popular guy, but Neil, he was everybody kind of loved him. Obviously the kind of first, not the first scene, but we get back to the kind of the dorm room, if you like, and his dad comes in, and like you say, he tells me can he do his extracurricular stuff, he's got to do this, and I'm sure it's a doctor he wants me to be, mate, but I'll stand corrected if I'm wrong. Controls his life, what he's got to do, because again, it's what his family want him to be, and he's getting no kind of he's not allowed to have his own thought in his head. Do you know what I mean? What he wants to do, he's get obviously a lot popular with his pals. He wants to do, theatre, become an actor. Also the relationship with his dad is it's no nice. Do you know what I mean? I find it quite hard to watch these scenes, to be honest with you, man, because like I don't know. I mean, I didn't have that relationship with my dad. Do you know what I mean? Like it was totally the opposite end. Do you know what I mean? And just how hard it must have been for him to always can never please somebody because with different opinions. I think I did like when he got the part, how delighted he was to it's a Midsummer Night's Dream, wasn't it? The play was.
Rings a bell.
I'm sure it was. Could be wrong. Anyway, he was chuffed he got the part for it, and the support from his pals throughout, the whole process of getting the part, and then actually seeing him in the play, and he was getting all the plaudits. He was how happy he was, and then when he seen his dad come in, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, I've almost got a point to prove. See, in lead up to that scene, though, obviously, I had a discussion with Keaton. His dad won't let him in. He won't let him do the play and all that sort of thing. Keaton wasn't buying it. Like he had told him as well. Like he was fine with it and all the rest of it. You could tell he wasn't buying it. And he has a conversation with his dad about this is what he wants to be. This is his own dreams. I want you to approve what I want to do, and his dad wasn't having it, and it's a horrible scene, man. It really is, and it's like I remember watching this for the first time, and I never would have thought this would have happened.
I was going to ask you that. Like, did you see when they went as far as they did with Neil?
I was surprised. I didn't think they would have done. I know that I'm looking for. Not every story, not every story has to have an ending. It's it's happy. Do you know what I mean? Whatever. But I just think this kind of mirrors the tragic nature of like plays anyway, like Romeo and Juliet and things like that. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of mirrored that to a degree. And
if you look at the name Dead Poets Society, like that could also allude to Neil to an extent.
Well, I think I was going to come on to this as well, because there's Keaton's foreshadows the death, obviously, kind of for what he says. So he says in one of the first lessons, kept this out for this point. So he says, "This is a battle, a war, and the casualties could be your hearts and souls." And then becomes the casualty.
Yeah.
He lost his life. Found the scenes hard to watch, mate. Again, do you know what I mean? It's obviously it's upsetting.
Yeah.
Again, even more upsetting. Well, no more upsetting, but just as sorry is the reaction to his friends.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And
the thing was, he's no, and it's like, why are you showing so much care now? Like, and then obviously he then tries to deflect the blame, which kind of sets up the kind of finale to the film.
aye, the scene in the snow when he's running, in the snow, and that's powerful in itself, man. Do you know what I mean? Like the setting of it, how kind of quiet it was during the boot. Like, it was just kind of almost as if, I don't know, something really kind of powerful about it, man. But it was just, like I said it's, earlier there, I didn't expect it to happen the first time, and we were watching it. It goes, the film kind of goes from very kind of happy, then tragic, quickly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, but aye, it was a.
Because there's a scene when they're having like a memorial in the school, and all the boys are singing, and you can see the kind of just the various stages of grief that they're going through. Particularly Charlie, who's the kind of happy-go-lucky one of the group. He's like pretty shattered by it, and I think Todd was the most kind of affected, being his like roommate and his kind of mentor in a sense. It's not pleasant, but it does, I suppose, set up the kind of stakes for the end of the film, and probably makes the end of the film even more powerful as a result.
Oh, absolutely, man. You want to talk about the ending now? Then
Yeah, we're naturally getting there. Yeah.
So Keaton's also gets he gets the blame because it's basically his teaching methods and the way that he's kind of setting it up to be in the Dead Poet Society. They all have to come clean, don't they? Because or they'll get expelled. So you tell us who's in it, what it's about, how it got to be, and then ultimately Keaton is left to blame, which annoys me greatly because if anything, he gave Neil the path to go on to realise his potential, and his dad could not accept that he was at fault. It was always somebody else's fault, and it's never him that he was too controlling, and that he was to blame for that. If he had just gave him the opportunity to realise his potential, to support his son, then that wouldn't have happened, and it just got too much for him. And Keaton was left to take the fall for that, which we all know it was in the case. When he comes back in to get his stuff, obviously, they're getting taught by the Hide. He's obviously the old English teacher.
Yeah.
And he's like, go to that page. I can't remember what page number it was now, but and he goes, I can't surf.
394. Sorry.
Can't, it's been ripped out. What do you mean it's been ripped out? He goes, give him your book. And he goes, no, they've all been ripped out. That was funny. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, we don't go that page. You know? But then as Keaton comes in, you can see that that English lesson has now become the same lesson as every other one in the school. Do you know what I mean? It's the same kind of way it's been taught. Nothing innovative there or anything. There's nothing there to capture minds. There's nothing there for, let them be themselves. And so I think it's important at this point when he's walking past and he's in his office, there's eye contact made between Todd and Keaton's, and that's important because I think there's a lot that's said there without actually saying it. Todd's physically, emotionally, you can see him. He wants to say something, and it's like, I know, right? Don't have to say anything. And then when he walks past and stuff like that, they go out because he's before that. Sorry, he's putting his scarf on and his jacket or whatever. He's getting his belongings. And he's looking through
really slowly.
Yep, and he's looking through that the door, and he can see that they are the same pupils. Do you know what I mean? And it's like they're just going to go back to the same old crap. So he's taking it all in, and then when he walks past, and then Todd gets on the table. That "Oh Captain, my Captain," which was good as well because at the start of the film, he says, "You call me Mr. Keatons or Sir or whatever," or he says, "If you want to be really daring, you can call me Oh Captain, my Captain," or "My Captain." And throughout the film, they do call him Captain. Do you know what I mean? Like it becomes a normal thing. Like they say "Sir" to you or "Sir" to me, whatever, or "Miss" or "Mrs." But the daring aspect of it was at this point here, because the daring aspect of this is saying, "Oh Captain, my Captain," an act of defiance on the table to acknowledge the fact that, you know what, you are not to blame here, and everything that you've done has bettered me in a way. He's bettered most people in that room. Confidence, learning, love. Doesn't always have to be English. It's the life lessons that came with it. Seize the day. And it was beautiful, mate. So it was. And then gradually they all kind of stood on the table. And if you don't get upset at that point, mate, through the film, then I don't know what will, because it was good, man.
No, there's definitely a few bits throughout the film. There's obviously there's a kind of where you see all the ones that are on the table, which is like most of your main cast, a few of the kind of more minor characters. You've also some that have just got their heads down, that obviously maybe didn't have the same relationship with Keating, or maybe they just didn't quite buy into it. So it was interesting to see that dynamic. There's another boy who was a couple of more minor characters. There's Pitts, who's in most of the film. He gets involved, but there's also the boy. I don't know if we ever get his name. The really short poem. It was like "The cat stood on the mat" or something like that. He's quite reluctant to get up on the thing. He's one of the kind of last to do it, but he does it. So there's a few moments like that as well. Just a couple of bits of the humor that came to mind was see when they were doing the bit where they're ripping the pages out, and Charlie just swallows the.
Aye. I had to hide it.
There's a few wee bits like that. Was there any other wee bits you remember in terms of like just wee bits of humour?
I think the most notable bit of humour is in an assembly, because there's they publish an article about girls going to Welton, and he's like, they'll know it's me, and you can hear the phone go. He goes, "Where's that coming from?" And he goes, "I've got to go here." "Hello, yes, just a moment, Mr. Nolan. It's for you. It's God. He says we should have girls at Welton," and everybody just roars. I mean, it's funny. It was funny because as much as the seriousness of this film is, right, 100%, the things that, and Charlie is the happy-go-lucky kind of guy. Do you know what I mean? And he's the kind of the comedic part of it. That was funny. Do you know what I mean? And then he obviously gets the lashes as a consequence for kind of doing that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that was funny. I did like that bit.
Because there was the whole bit as well where they're getting called in one at a time, and they all eventually sign it because they were basically kind of coerced by the head teacher and the parents, that it was like everyone had already agreed, they don't know, there's nothing they don't already know, that sort of thing. We talked about the kind of quotes, I suppose, in terms of the funny moments, but was there a kind of answer to this? And I think we might agree. Did you have a favorite character in the film? Like, I'd maybe take John Keaton out of the equation because he's like out with John Keaton. Like, is there a character that stood out to you?
Probably Charlie.
Yeah, I agree.
It's probably Charlie, because I like it as well when he's obviously creates his alter ego. No wonder, 'cause he's like,
Yeah.
I'm not conforming. This is like, I'm different now, and he's no wonder. But I just think the comedy no needed, but it was good to have something every so often thrown in there that just what he
Yeah.
is, just a normal lad. Do you know what I mean?
He was funny, but he was also brave in his own way. Like, he was a good friend. He was always the first to like go off. I'll take the blame for like kind of owning up to the article and owning up to being like, he was quite brave as well and a good friend and quite affected by Neil's death as well.
He was, and he gets more points because he punches Singy as well, Richard.
Aye, yeah, I think he deserved that. So that's us kind of reached the end of the film in the sense. I've got two questions for you. They're not quiz questions, but this one's a tricky one. Only pick one. Dead Poet Society or Good Will Hunting? It's a toughie. We said we would come back to Good Will Hunting at some point.
Oh, I'm sure you asked me this before, and I'm sure I've given a different answer each time you've asked me. I'm going to give a different answer now as well.
Yeah.
I don't know, man, because the films hit the same but hit differently, if you know what I mean, from a different perspective.
Yeah.
So it's just like I think I'm going to go with Good Will Hunting.
That's funny because I'm going to go with Dead Poet Society.
I'm going to go with Good Will Hunting. I've really just changed my answer in 2 seconds.
Conformity at its finest.
Well, exactly, mate. It's tough. I'm going to stick with Good Will Hunting just now. They're both just. I don't know if it's the Robin Williams effect, but they're just amazing. You know what I mean?
I think it's harsh to really compare them. I think they're both amazing, but I would probably just give Dead Poet Society the edge because I think even the first time I watched them, I enjoyed it more out of the two. Just.
Aye. I can't even remember what I gave Good Will Hunting now, so this is going to be interesting.
Yeah. Well, we do our seismic stars then. I can go first this time if you want. I'll probably just give it a 10. Just a reminder to people listening that we're not comparing this to every other film. The genre it is. I'm going to give it a 10. I think it's a pretty flawless film, to be honest.
Aye. I'm going to give it 9. 9 out of 10. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm not conforming to give it a 10. No, it's not like that. I'm not going to be looking for things to because that'd be really unfair. I know we say, why do we give things a 7, 8, or 9, whatever, and we look for the kind of down points, but I'm not going to do that this time. I just 9 out of 10, mate.
The second question was, right, we're living in the age of legacy sequels, but hear me out. How would you feel about a movie with the young boys as adults or maybe even teaching together and remembering John Keating's legacy, because then he would have passed away like Robin Williams did. Is that something you would watch? Is that something you think they should do? Could you see that working? Just with my head.
I don't know if it would work, because you remember how strict the school is. I mean,
Or they go to a different school or open their own school. I don't know. Just
all right. So I mean,
Think
certainly they
about
could, they could do. I mean, I don't know. Time's passed too long now for that to happen, obviously, but I think that
has it though? Are they not probably round about the age that Robin Williams was then? Ish.
Ethan
Maybe
Hawke,
not quite.
maybe older.
He's 50, mid 50s, I think. So maybe older, yeah, but
I could. They've made their own. They've a kind of poetry school or something like that, and or they've got an English, English faculty or whatever. And I mean, it'd be good.
Not the worst sequel idea.
No,
Right.
But aye, it'd be good to have seen what they've done with their lives, I suppose. Do you know what I mean? Like, as a sequel, it'd be nice to say, how did they get past, obviously the tragic nature of Neil passing, and how did they kind of, for their own lives, their own circumstances, and then honour Neil as well. Do you know what I mean? And maybe did they link back in with Keating a future? Because obviously after they leave school, I mean, is there an opportunity there for them to reconnect or whatever? I don't know.
It's also 10 years this year since Robin Williams died. It was 2014.
This time go, man, honestly.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the two questions I wanted to ask you. So thank you so much for listening to us. Just a reminder that you can follow Seismic Cinema on X, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. And on Facebook, we have a Facebook page and a group. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And remember to check out the Podpack Collective and the different people involved in that. Just one call to action. We are on 148 YouTube subscribers, and we've kind of been stuck at that bit for a wee while. But if you enjoyed this episode and our previous episodes, we would greatly appreciate if you consider subscribing to the channel, because we'd love to meet that milestone of 150. And yeah, so I'm Colin. Paul probably watched the series in a backwards order.
And I'm James, and I have probably written an essay on it.